On September 16th, 2025, Hollywood and the wider world of cinema paused in collective grief as news broke that Robert Redford, the enduring face of American film and independent artistry, had passed away peacefully at the age of 89 in his Sundance home in Utah. For over 6 decades, Redford had been more than an actor. He was a director, producer, activist, and the visionary force behind the Sundance Film Festival. Early reports described a serene departure in his sleep, the quiet ending of a long and remarkable life. Yet, as the hours passed, a different story began to unfold when leaked forensic documents surfaced, painting a portrait not of peaceful ease, but of years marked by chronic illness, physical decline, and unanswered mysteries. These details, at once haunting and strangely intimate, turned his autopsy from a clinical report into something resembling a final, reluctant diary. In today's retrospective, we examine what these revelations suggest about Redford's last years, how his family and colleagues responded, and why his legacy remains both luminous and layered with complexity. A life shadowed by illness. The report's opening lines referenced a medical battle that Redford had quietly carried for years: chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or COPD, diagnosed in March 2018 at the Mayo Clinic after a sudden hospitalization. The illness, often linked to decades of smoking, revealed an irony: the same cigarette-smoking image that made him the epitome of mid-century cool left behind scars on his lungs that would never heal. Though he quit smoking in the late 1990s, the damage lingered, and by 2019 he relied on an oxygen tank daily and a breathing machine at night. Records showed nearly 30 hospitalizations between 2018 and 2023 for respiratory distress, with costs totaling over $1 million. To the public, Redford remained the strong and dignified figure on stage and at Sundance. But behind the scenes, he was a man quietly fighting for breath, determined to keep his private struggles from becoming part of his public story. A fragile heart and silent struggles. Beyond his lungs, Redford's heart bore the burden of age and illness. The forensic report revealed 3 mild heart attacks, one in 2021, another in 2023, and a final episode in early 2024. Despite medical advice to undergo corrective procedures, Redford refused invasive interventions, preferring medication and sheer resilience to sustain him. One recorded episode described him suddenly clutching his chest during a family dinner at his Utah ranch, only to dismiss the concern with a faint smile and a quip about salty food. These moments of concealment underscored his lifelong instinct to carry pain privately, allowing only hints of frailty to appear in public. His weight loss, gaunt appearance, and increasingly slow steps in the early 2020s became visible signs that the man once hailed as Hollywood's golden gentleman was being slowly undone by the passing of time. The final Sundance appearance. One of the most poignant details in the leaked report tied directly to Redford's public life. In early 2024, despite profound weakness, he made the effort to appear at the Sundance Film Festival. Supported step by step by aides, he greeted the audience with a pale face but a smile that carried both gratitude and defiance. It was, many realized, his farewell to the stage he had created. Critics and journalists noted his determination, with Ann Thompson of IndieWire remarking that he did not come to say goodbye, but to prove he could still stand, even as his body faltered. This appearance became etched in memory as the last time audiences saw him alive, not as a figure diminished by illness, but as an artist unwilling to surrender the platform that had defined him and empowered generations of filmmakers. The quiet descent in 2025. By the start of 2025, Redford's decline was unmistakable. Mostly confined to a wheelchair, he was under constant nursing care. Medical costs reportedly doubled as his condition worsened, reflecting not extravagance, but necessity. The toxicology section of the report noted elevated levels of morphine and sedatives, medications used not to hasten his death, but to manage unrelenting pain. In a private conversation later cited by a medical source, Redford confessed he was not afraid of death, but dreaded waking each morning to face another day of suffering. This quiet admission, though never meant for public ears, revealed the profound emotional and physical toll of his final years. It also added dignity to his struggle. He faced pain not with complaint, but with acceptance. Scars of a lifetime. The forensic notes also chronicled the visible scars of a long and eventful life. A mark from skin cancer surgery in 2015, an artificial knee from 2019 complicated by infection, and even bed sores that indicated long stretches confined to his bed. These details, clinical as they were, became poignant reminders that behind the glamorous public image stood a man whose body bore the inevitable toll of time and illness. Yet one detail raised questions: a large unexplained bruise on his left rib cage. The coroner's report listed it as possibly from impact, but offered no definitive cause. Some speculated it might have been from a fall, while others wondered if the omission of detail was intentional. Though not sinister in itself, the lack of clarity fueled public speculation about what exactly happened in his last days. A family's silence and the world's curiosity. When news of his passing first broke, Redford's family issued a brief and dignified statement. He died peacefully at home, surrounded by loved ones. They asked for privacy, avoiding mention of his long medical struggles. Ironically, that silence only fueled greater curiosity. Within hours, thousands of news articles appeared, tributes flooded international media, and searches for Robert Redford autopsy trended globally. Major outlets such as the New York Times, The Guardian, and Los Angeles Times published expansive retrospectives, while French and Asian outlets emphasized his global impact. On television, networks replayed his greatest films, reminding audiences why his name carried such weight. In one of the most moving responses, Jane Fonda tearfully declared, "Robert was beautiful in every sense." The next day, Meryl Streep summed up the collective grief in one haunting line: "One of the last lions has fallen." The ghost of Paul Newman. Among the most haunting personal moments came not from the report, but from family recollections. In the final weeks, Redford often awoke at night and sat by the window overlooking the snow-covered Wasatch Range. He was said to keep a notebook filled with Hemingway and Thoreau quotes, sometimes murmuring lines like, "I've come far enough." One evening, he reportedly whispered that he had seen Paul Newman, his friend, co-star, and, in some eyes, soulmate. Whether the vision was a morphine dream or a final confession, the mention carried symbolic power. Their partnership on screen in Butch Cassidy and The Sundance Kid and The Sting had defined a generation. For Redford to call Newman's name in his last days suggested a bond that went beyond cinema, a companionship that endured in memory and perhaps in his final thoughts. A life of contradictions and achievements. Redford's story was always one of contrasts. A golden star whose youth was marred by restlessness, a celebrated actor who preferred directing, a public figure who craved privacy. Born in Santa Monica in 1936, expelled from college for reckless behavior, he wandered through Europe before returning to America to build a career that would reshape Hollywood. Films like Butch Cassidy, The Sting, All the President's Men, and Ordinary People brought him acclaim, box office dominance, and even an Oscar for directing. Yet he was not free from struggles. His son Scott's early death, rumours of personal turmoil, political controversies, and whispers of difficult perfectionism on set. These contradictions made him human, flawed, passionate, sometimes aloof, but always committed to the ideals of art and authenticity. The legacy of Sundance. If Redford's acting made him a star, it was Sundance that made him a legend. Founded in Utah in the 1980s, the festival became the beating heart of independent cinema. He mortgaged his own home to sustain it in its early years, and from those sacrifices came a stage that launched filmmakers like Quentin Tarantino, Steven Soderbergh, and Damien Chazelle. To many in the industry, Sundance was more than a festival. It was a revolution. Variety once declared, "Without Sundance, American cinema would lose half its creative soul." Redford's determination to give young storytellers a voice may prove his most enduring legacy, ensuring that long after his films fade, his influence will shape generations. The man beyond the spotlight. Despite his fame, those who lived near Redford in Utah described a man of surprising simplicity. He frequented local cafes, read newspapers quietly, and offered polite nods to those who recognized him. No entourage, no spectacle, just a man at ease with his community. This simplicity stood in stark contrast to the swirling rumours and controversies that often attached to his name. It also reflected a life that, despite its grandeur, was grounded in a deep sense of place. Sundance was not just a festival, it was his home, his sanctuary, and ultimately his final resting place. Conclusion. A legacy in light and shadow. The leaked autopsy report of Robert Redford did not diminish his greatness. It humanized it. It revealed a man of flesh and blood, scarred by illness, humbled by age, yet still capable of grace and dignity. It also reminded the world that legends are not immune to pain or secrecy. Redford's family chose silence, a silence that may forever leave questions unanswered. But what matters most is not how he died, but how he lived. As an actor who embodied charm and intelligence, as a director who won Oscars, as a founder who changed cinema, and as a man who faced his final curtain with quiet acceptance. His legacy is etched not only in his films, but also in his refusal to compromise on the values of artistry and independence. In the end, Robert Redford remains what he always was, not merely a Hollywood star, but a cultural giant whose light will continue to guide the world of cinema long after his final breath.